Welcome to Mercedes in the Chap, a show dedicated to helping humans become extraordinary. Here we'll hone a well-rounded roadmap for us to step into our potential in all things relationships, work, purpose, and legacy. Chap.
Melissa is a yoga teacher. No, she is. But she's a producer of film, commercial, and TV, a full producer, a real producer. Okay. She's also a screen actor. She's an actress, Screen Actors Guild. She's in the guild. She's currently single and very beautiful, very elegant, very hyper intelligent. What we're going to talk about is...
If you couldn't tell, Chap was really excited about that. He got in there before I could even say who we're having on the show today.
Don't do it.
Melissa McNerney. And she is all of those things you just listed, including our producer for this show, which is so impressive because let me tell you, we're a little bit of a wowly group to handle. And one of the most beautiful things I think about Melissa is she does such an eloquent job of handling this team, and I'm sure all the other teams she handles in her production work. Being a manager and managing people takes a lot of consciousness around ability to communicate with other humans. And that is maybe the hardest work, maybe the most important work that I believe all humans are here to figure out how to do, communicate with others so that we can synergistically move forward. And with that is really what we got into on this episode. It was quite a beautiful conversation, if I do say so myself, since I was part of it. But she gave us all this insight about emotional intelligence, which is kind of a new agey term, but it is so cool to have someone on the show who's experiencing it for herself and really working through that for herself right now and giving us all the insights of how to do it, but also what it looks like in her life. So I want to jump right in. She tells us all about how to process men, or how she goes about processing men in the dating world, since she is single, ready to mingle right now. So let's get into it.
Let's mingle.
Yes. Oh, yeah. We got Melissa today on the couch. You've been playing with us all week, shooting episodes, and now it's your turn to be in the hot seat. How are you feeling?
Wait, hold on before we get to that. You guys might not realize this, but I actually have a Greek goddess with me, Mercedes, and a member of the royal family with me, Melissa.
Amazing.
Can you tell?
Melissa Middleton.
Yes, Melissa Middleton.
And Cleoparcides.
Yeah. Is that Greek?
Works.
Okay.
No, it's I don't know.
We're
Who
really
cares?
skipping around.
It makes sense. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Can you give some background as to why Melissa is? I mean, I know why I'm a goddess.
Clearly.
And I know why I'm a royal.
Yeah.
So yeah, no. Here's what that is. It's very actually. I didn't mean it as a segue, but that's a good question. I've known and worked with Melissa as you have, but I've known and worked with Melissa for a long time, and there's this, it's very interesting because I think she's the only person I've met that has this presence about her. And she doesn't come from the royal family. I know, I mean, burst your bubble here, but she has this elegance about her and this like stature, and she carries herself. And every time I've seen her in this, no matter what she's wearing, no matter what she's doing, in this very elegant, very royal, very noble way. And
regal.
It's very regal. It's very interesting to be around somebody like that because I really have never experienced that before.
Ooh.
It's probably from my past life.
Hey, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Some royalty lineage or something.
I feel the vibes.
Thank you, Jen.
I like it. Okay, well, let's get into what we actually came here to discuss. We'll talk about
We'll get off of our platforms now.
Get off of our high horses. So, Melissa,
That's my job.
Yeah. Melissa, you happen to be our producer for this show, a woman of many talents. And I think it's so cool that we can also have you on the couch here to discuss some of the things that we really want to get across to our audience, like what it's like to date a multi-talented, independent, and fascinating woman like yourself. So what does the dating process with Melissa look like? You're single right now, so you're kind of in the dating world, and you are, I'm sure, actively processing men, right?
You mean
that's actually kind of accurate.
It's accurate. I mean, that's
you mean
what it
sharpening
is.
her sword?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is what dating, I think, should be. It's a processing. It's not like, right? Like we've discussed this offset, Melissa. The idea of when you go on a date, instead of going into it from this place of really scarcity that I think a lot of humans go into that world with, that energy of like, are they going to want me? I just want to be wanted by the person sitting across me. I just want to be liked. And so we try to start people pleasing. We try to start just figuring out how we can, be liked by this person, be wanted and desired, instead of figuring out and processing, is this someone I even want to be with? Like, is this, I'm not even trying to be an asshole about it. I'm not. Is this worth my time? Is this worth my time investing in courting and doing all the things here? And right off the bat, there's some things I'm sure when you sit down with a man, you can figure out very quickly whether it is going to be worth your time if you're looking for a romantic relationship.
Well, right now with online dating and a lot of the things you're talking about, I think it's the difference between dating when you're in your early 20s, where there is no self-reflection. I think it's much more like fly by the seat of your pants. What's exciting, and it's mostly based on attraction,
looks, and physical attraction.
Yeah, like what you need fundamentally and deeply isn't really coming into play, I think, when you're looking for somebody. Yeah. But that changes a lot. For me, it changed a lot now that I'm in my mid-30s.
With maturity.
With a lot of personal work done, what I'm bringing to the table, and the filtration process that's happening for me now, before I would even sit down with somebody, there's a lot of work that's going on there, just on my side of the table. But I've been exploring for the first time online dating, and before I even created a profile for myself, I made a list of 100 things that I'm looking for in a person.
100. I love this.
Yeah, and that wasn't my idea. That was my best friend. We talk about things. We talk about everything, but it was something somebody suggested to her. She did it and seemingly manifested the man of her dreams doing that. And that's not to sound so woo-woo. That's doing work.
Absolutely.
That's putting something down on paper. That's what you desire. That's a reflection of where you're going, not where you're coming from. And the list is fun too. There's silly things on there, but to make that list and to do that homework for myself. And after I made it, I closed it. I haven't looked at it since. But what that did was, when I got into the online dating scene, there are filtrations built into those algorithms.
Yeah.
But I had 100 that I also brought to the table too.
Now, I just got to stop you. Is 100 the goal, or it just happened to be 100 that came out of you?
100 was easy.
That's the question. So that was like, cool, 100, I could do 200.
Yeah, and I would say for the listeners, if finding 100 things that you're looking for in somebody is a challenge, I think you have a little more work to do. And that's getting to know yourself in a lot of different categories. Doing that work, like it should be pretty easy to come up with 100 things.
Because the reality is, we do have specific things about ourselves that we want to have reflected in our partnership. And there's probably easily 100 of those, but most of us are not willing to look at what those are, because we're afraid if we put too many things on the list, we're never going to find someone to add up to all that, because somehow we're not worthy of someone who adds up to that list. Or if we find someone who meets that list, they would never want to be with someone like us. Mm-hmm. And that's that's the work you're talking about, is getting in there, giving yourself the self-love, and realizing that you innately, just by existing, are worthy.
And did you prioritize these things in order, or was it just shotgunning, throwing all these things out there, almost like a whiteboarding or brainstorming?
It was in no particular order, although easily hands down the number one thing, if I were to go back and rearrange them and put them in an order, the number one thing I'm looking for in a person, besides attraction, because that's so obvious, but is somebody that is self-reflective.
Yes.
And does that has to be and to me there's a connection there with being self-reflective and having some kind of spiritual life. Doesn't have to be religious, but some kind of spiritual life connected with personal growth. That's my number one.
Yeah, and that was a good question, Chap, because even though, you said you put this list down, and you just doing that exercise, you're kind of like telling the universe, like, here's what I'm calling in. I'm coming in with these intentions, and you're making it clear to yourself, to the world around you. just energetically by doing that. And then you put the list away, the book of 100 things away, and you said, now let me actually experience, someone walking into my life that embodies those characteristics. Now, when someone walks into your life and they hit a lot of those characteristics, but maybe there are a few that they're still working on, whatever, you have this maybe prioritize in your mind, maybe not necessarily on the list, but prioritized the fact that they need to be in that journey of self-awareness, self-mastery, doing their own inner work, and they are spiritual, because that's kind of what that goes hand in hand. If they already are doing that and they don't necessarily have whatever the minutia on this 100 item list is, you know that they will likely come along in some of these places, or because of that growth mindset, you can get along anyway.
Yeah, I don't expect perfection and this arrival, as like you're the most evolved version of yourself, and that's the person that I'm going to get, because you do want to have the experience of growing together in a relationship. And I also wouldn't want somebody to expect that of me. Yeah. Because I am ever evolving too, and a work in progress too.
Yes. So this is beautiful, because the women I meet in my life, and especially in this work that I love to play in, are the ones that I go, damn, like I would date her, or that's the girl that the guys are going, oh, why do I? It's kind of the why me, or the victim mindset, or like, why am I not calling in these queens, and what's wrong with me? And it's like, well, the fact that you're acting as if you're a victim to the circumstance, instead of going, what can I learn from the fact I'm not calling in this queen or this woman, and then doing the work so that you become energetically a match to her. That's the first place I would tell them to look. But to me, the hope I have, I guess, for humanity is the fact that when I meet a woman like you, or a man in the same energetic like you, I go, oh, that person is proof that this is happening, and those women or men are out there in the world for those people that are, why can't I? Why don't I? Why aren't I calling in my king or queen? So I love that you're, being this example and you're literally creating a ripple for the world to experience through you. And it's just beautiful. But I wanted to touch on something with you. I don't know what rabbit hole I was going down with that, but I know it's going to be a long one, so I'm going to move us forward. Because I want to talk about something that you're really passionate about, which is emotional intelligence, EQ, right? This is something that you've studied, you are embodying, and I'd love to just get the 101 basics for our audience and for myself, because this is a place I really want to play from you.
Definitely. And I think maybe one little nugget from the rabbit hole you might have just been going down, something that I thought of, and then we'll get back to EQ stuff, is for maybe men want to know, what is a woman looking for, but also maybe it's valuable for men to know what we're working on for ourselves, because myself and some other women that I know who are in a similar stage in our lives, one of the things that we are seeking is, deeper connection and what we are worthy of.
Yes.
And so if men know that we desire what we deserve, like, be that. It's really kind of simple. Like, well, what does a woman want? She wants to be with somebody she deserves. Well, how do I be somebody that a woman deserves? Okay, I think we all know the answer to that. Like, you need to be the best version of yourself. And still a work in progress.
Always.
For sure.
And as you were talking, and this is really good. I'm learning a lot here, obviously, but I've known you guys for a while, so it goes with this is obvious to me. But what's interesting, and I want to ask this, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole because I think the direction we're heading is perfect. But I have to ask this because I'm dying.
Please.
If I am, as a younger guy, and I see these, I grew up in the era of the supermodel, and I see these, Hollywood actresses, like the classic, or these supermodels. And it seems like they tend to date these guys that are just really, buff, or really, perceptively very, strong and put together. But not only it feels like you guys aren't looking for that at all. I mean, if they happen to be, that's fine. But not only are you not looking for that, maybe the reality is that what those females found attractive in those guys was not their body. It was their mind, and they're working on themselves. They just happened to take their health seriously, and they were working towards this. And it just naturally, they like going to the gym because they want to feel better, and and then they just happen to be better bodies, their physiques happen to be more attractive, but it's not like the woman was just looking for that.
No, and it's a really good point, Jeff, because it tends to go hand in hand a lot of the time. Like when you want to be mentally healthy, physical health has to come along with that because they are intrinsically linked. So that's why I believe biologically a healthy body is a great indicator of a good match, or, just one good indicator of a good match, because you know that they're at least in integrity with some parts of themselves. Like they realize that in order to move forward in life and be productive and steward the species forward, they need to fill their own cup by being physically active, by eating a way that doesn't damage their body, by not over consuming or whatever the way that they keep themselves healthy.
But your tolerance though for different body types is really pretty open, because like this whole concept that we talked about before of the dad bod, it's also okay, right? Because it's not, there, again, everything in moderation, right? We're trying to thread the needle. We're playing in the gray area. And so, there is this time where it's fine, but really we're just getting back to the same thing. It's really not about that. It's really about you.
Yeah, it's easy to say it's really not about that. And I want Melissa to really speak to this too, because it isn't about that only, but it is a
attractiveness is important though.
Yeah,
it's
important because it signals something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the way that, I could speak for myself, the way that I choose to deal with this physical body that I am living in for the rest of my life is a reflection of my self-esteem, my self-worth. That's part of the work. So,
and I didn't think about that. You do have to live in this body for the rest of your life. That's very well said, because I don't really ever think about that. I got to live with me as long as I'm alive.
Yeah, and I'm demonstrating to my partner in the way that I take care of the body that I'm in. I'm demonstrating to them that that's important to me, and I think that's part of how you show up as the best version of yourself for your partner. Yes. It's kind of an act of love, and I really do mean that, not with any vanity attached to it, because I don't need a six-pack and my partner doesn't need a six-pack, but I need to know that you honor your physical self.
I want to be with the healthiest human that you can possibly be. Not that I'm saying that they have to be genetically, they're never going to have diabetes in their family or whatever, the genetics or whatever. Yeah. It's just a matter of, I want to know that this person is in integrity with their self, and that physically is visible, and that is what makes someone attractive.
Yes. Yeah, good point. Good point.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
Emotional intelligence.
Yeah. And so getting back to that, something that I thought maybe I could share with the emotional intelligence thing is, I'm an actor, and you would think as an actor, you have this really colorful emotional life, but sometimes in life, the circumstances that you've come from, maybe in your childhood or just a life experience that you've had, can chip away at your emotional life. And you maybe just live in one or two emotions for a period of time, which is, in my opinion, probably it's some sort of a survival mechanism. Yeah. It's like, these two emotions work for me. I'm going to live in happy and sad. And like, that's good enough for me. And it wasn't until I started going to therapy a few years ago, my therapist gave me this piece of paper. It wasn't anything fancy, that you can look at fancier versions online, but it's a pie chart basically. And there's dozens and dozens of emotions written in them. It's called like the emotion wheel or something. And she handed that to me. She was so intuitive, because I think she could see that I was trapped in not experiencing enough.
The range
of
emotion.
And as I was looking at this paper, I'm like, wow, like there are so many emotions that I'm actually on the verge of experiencing, but to protect myself, I'm only living in one or two.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of some deeper emotional work that I did for myself. And it's so simple. This really just started sitting in a therapist's office and being open-minded enough to look at that piece of paper and also tell myself I deserve as a human being to experience all of these emotions. Yes. That's life.
I love that you came to that way. I think that's such a good way. Anyone can come to that realization, I feel like, in a therapist chair, but I'm always going to be pushing that. But that's kind of, one of the reasons of starting this show is like, what other ways can we reach humans and let them know that there is other and more experience available if you feel your feelings. And knowing the range of feelings, like knowing the feelings wheel or the emotions wheel and I have had it stuck on my fridge, before, like, how am I feeling today? Like, check in, just so you know, like, frustrated is different than angry, in these ways. And why is that for me? And what, then you go down that train of thought. But it's beautiful to just know that if you're numbing yourself out, which I think is such an epidemic right now, I mean, you even see just in the drugs that we prescribe, right, in the world of Western medicine, like the Prozacs, all the SSRIs, the serotonin reuptake inhibitors, like the Zolofts. And
what is it, 1 in 5 Americans or
it's
something?
Crazy.
Yeah,
and the Xanax.
And alcohol, too.
Yeah.
Good point.
And the oxycodones, alcohol. I mean, as besides prescription drugs, marijuana even, like people don't like to put a bad light on that because it's doing its own thing right now. But these forms of escaping feeling in a certain way can become negative if overused, of course. And that's why I say, like, even with marijuana, there is a place where that falls into this numbing category. And it might not be numbing the way that an oxycodone or a Xanax or something is, but it definitely creates a place that you go that is not in this reality anymore. So you may be feeling other feelings and having another beautiful perspective, and that's great and can be used for amazing things, but you have taken yourself away from feeling whatever is actually going on in this reality that we are in. And that idea, Melissa, of exploring where you're limiting yourself, your life experience, is something I don't think people even know is an issue for them most of the time.
Yeah, and for maybe anybody that's listening that's even unsure about going to therapy as a first step, just download this feelings wheel and just explore a little bit and really just get real with yourself and ask yourself, where am I living 99% of the time in my emotional life? Yeah. Like, because if it's only a few things,
few emotions,
if it's only a few emotions, like, what a bummer,
Yeah, because we get this one life in this one human body, this one time, very limited.
Yes. And you said something too that I really relate to, because there is a big difference between being, frustrated or angry. And also one thing that I really identified with at a certain point in my life, not right now, but like, am I sad or am I lonely? Yes. And lonely, that's a pretty gutting feeling to have, but I couldn't even go there with myself. Wow. And so it's just an invitation, I think, to just baby step, just look at that wheel and investigate.
And nobody's going to judge you when you're just looking at an app. Like, you're looking at an app for your own purposes. And it's like, it might reaffirm that you're in a good place. It might say, oh, I have some work to do. And it might say that, man, this is really an eye opener. So you just never know. I mean, it's looking at, this is, we don't talk about politics here, thankfully, but there, when people that I'm friends with start talking politics, I was like, it's really worth looking at some of these really good surveys, because you might find you're not what you think you are. We're definitely not who we think we are. Right. No, we can't. And that's the fun of doing personal growth work is there's a zillion light bulb moments I've had about myself along the way. And if it's okay for me to jump into something about this, because it's connected to doing this kind of work, this investigative work on yourself, which I describe as kind of fun, actually. Yeah, there's moments when it's, shit, I'm really facing something and confronting something. But for the most part, it's a real exploration. And you could pretty much trust that you're going to come out better on the other side if you're willing to do this. But I'm also in a 12-step program, it's the counter program of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's called Al-Anon, and it was developed at the exact same time as AA was, but one was by the husband, who was the alcoholic, one was by the wife. So she developed this as a support system for family members and friends of alcoholics and addicts. But the unique thing about the programs is, even in Al-Anon, we do the exact same 12-step work. And the reason for that is because in tricky situations like living or loving an alcoholic, you can become really codependent and not realize it and lose yourself in trying to fix somebody or heal somebody. And you might be enabling them without you knowing it. Absolutely enabling. And so you turn the 12-step work on yourself in order to put the work back on yourself, so that you're not pointing a finger at somebody else saying, this is all your fault, this is all you.
I love, somebody said this in the program once, but like when you're pointing at somebody else, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you. Do your work. Yeah. And so in the 12 steps, the 4th step, which I think is written so beautifully, is to make a searching and fearless moral inventory of yourself. And to just be willing to, because why not? Why wouldn't I do that? Why wouldn't I want to explore what my relationship is to, and there's a book that you can do all this work in, but why wouldn't I want to explore my relationship to finances, love, sex is in there, all kinds of different topics, ask myself questions about what are the foundations of my understanding of all these things, who am I trying to become in doing this work, and what do I need to work on? Yeah. And I'm telling you, there's exponential growth doing this. And I did it with a sponsor, which is highly recommended, just to share the experience with somebody else. And the accountability
of it. Yeah.
Yes, and the accountability. It did take me over a year to do.
And is that open to all humans or just? Yeah, okay, everybody.
Absolutely. Right, that's the interesting thing is, even if, I'm pretty sure every single person in this world is affected by somebody, knows somebody, that's suffering from addiction. And so I say, you have a seat at the table in those rooms. And now you can go on Zoom with total anonymity and listen in, and you'll hear a lot of people that are just in that room trying to become the best version of themselves. Yeah. And that's what I'm all about.
I love it because the 12-step program, whether Al-Anon or AA or other places, I believe they run it as well, that I don't know all the acronyms for, but it gives you the structure to walk yourself to a more balanced, integral place and away from where you may be in this codependent pattern or this place of victimhood, like we were talking about, all these places that we end up out of balance and out of integrity. And just similar to that, you can think of even all the dogmas that are popular in religion, religious dogmas out there in the world. These are structures that allow us to step through those doors of finally figuring out who we actually are, what we're here to do, what is our purpose, why are we spinning on this, mote of dust. And I want to get to the part of the 12-step program that is, I think, the deterrent for a lot of people, amongst other parts. It's vulnerable. You have to be accountable. And obviously, if you haven't hit your rock bottom and haven't figured out that you really need to do this in order to progress in your life, then you probably got to hit your rock bottom before you're going to be listening to this episode. But
true.
There's also this piece of it that is around higher power that the 12-step program subscribes or prescribes, really, that people are afraid to look at. So maybe from your perspective, how do we approach that idea of a higher power from it doesn't matter what your denomination is, from a place of reverence? Because that's really what it is having reverence for self and realizing that you also need help.
I think it starts with understanding that being self-reliant is sabotage. And so if you cannot rely on yourself because you haven't healed yourself, for me, it's like, I've got to rely on something else. Mm-hmm. And it's not just one thing. It's solely defined by me and what I need in order to get out of self-reliance and out of doing things my way. And so that could be developing a relationship with something greater than yourself. You could call it higher power. You could call it God. You could call it anything, the universe, mm-hmm. the source, we've heard lots of different things, but it's almost more about an experience than an entity. Mm-hmm. And so that could be going on a walk. The walk fosters getting out of the head and making space to receive something else that's not your big grand ideas that haven't been working for you. I think it starts with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like nature can be the higher power mm-hmm. that you kind of turn to because when you're in it, you have this sense, you have this feeling of calm.
Or knowledge can be higher power. So if you decide you want to start reading from an author that inspires you, that's living their life in a way that you want to live your life. Okay, so that's turning outside of yourself to something bigger than who you are to receive that's a higher power.
And also, in a practical way too, you talk about the reading or, so I like historical documentaries and I read historical stuff. So, but even reading something like right now I'm reading, and I started this a while ago, this is a long book, but on the Russian Revolution, and even looking back at that, you realize, boy, that time, I'm so glad I don't live in that. And I know that seems simplistic, but you start thinking, you inevitably start thinking about the world you live in, and you realize, man, things are going pretty good here, or here meaning in the time and your body and your space. And it's like, it doesn't have to be necessarily picking up a self-help book or picking up, some sort of religious or psychological text. It can just be something that is greater than you. And it lets you know that your life is actually pretty good and you can make it better.
Definitely. Yeah. Gratitude is what I hear.
Yeah, definitely.
Getting out there.
Yeah. There's one of my mentors who I worked with for a while and who is just doing amazing work in the world. His name's Michael Brody Waite. Melissa, we talked a little bit about him yesterday, I think, but he wrote this book called Great Leaders Live Like Drug Addicts. He's a former drug addict, turned like 3 times, I think more than that now, CEO, extremely successful TED Talk speaker. And he has this 3 principles that he lives his life by. And he has basically a program where he, like the 12-step program, which is where his theory or his philosophy was born, sponsors people that he works with, and he calls it the mask-free program. But the reason I bring him up is because he really broke it down into 3 really easy steps that I forced a 4th step onto along our time together. But it's practice rigorous authenticity, surrender the outcome, do uncomfortable work. And then my step was to integrate with gratitude, which is that piece of higher power. But the ideas that you're putting across here, Melissa, are really that, to practice rigorous authenticity, meaning to allow the bullshit that keeps you from seeing yourself to settle down for a moment. And that takes slowing down, sitting with yourself, becoming mindful, and realizing, okay, what is actually true here? Like what, I don't know, maybe you hurt someone's feelings or whatever. How do I confront this situation? Okay, well, slow first of all down and figure out what's your side of the street. What honestly is your side of the street? Did you come into that conversation heated because you didn't eat today and you're hangry? I don't know. Now, surrender the outcome of how that's going to reflect when you go do the uncomfortable work, right? Which is the uncomfortable work will be confronting the person again and saying like, hey, I fucked up. I was an asshole because, yeah, maybe these were all the reasons, but, I was hangry or whatever happened. But bottom line, I fucked up. And that's what you're really trying to relay. And that takes a lot of vulnerability. That's the uncomfortable work, right?
Or making a really tough decision is part of the uncomfortable work. You've done some work and then you're confronted with a choice.
Absolutely, too. Yeah. And in that, the hardest part of the 3 steps is the 2nd step, and it's surrendering the outcome. Because you're going to go in and you're going to go, oh, they might push back. They might not ever like me again. I don't know what's going to happen.
And a lot of what I'm hearing is a lot of this is when I was younger in college and law school, you need to have these management courses and these management books, and some of them are really good. And it's a lot of the same thing. And this goes back, and it's a lot of the same thing what you guys are talking about. And it's how to be a good leader.
Absolutely.
And you have to be able to make decisions. And we all know that we make wrong decisions, but at least you made a decision.
And in Al-Anon, they say, because a lot of people are afraid to make decisions because we're too worried about what other people are going to think, or we're afraid of other people's reactions. And that can't be a reason to not make a decision. Yes. So if you make a decision and it doesn't work out, this is what they say, or I've heard this in Al-Anon. If you make a decision, which is so courageous, and it doesn't work out, all you have to do is make another decision.
Yes, that's beautiful.
That's it. And that helped me overcome making difficult decisions.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of thinking about it. It's very simple too. It's just like, just move forward. You'll be all right.
And another thing is just work through it. You're, guys that I'm around, you have a weapon malfunction, work through it.
Instead of
Don't
collapsing.
Just stand there and be, excuse me, instructor, it's work through it. Figure it out, work through it, get back in the fight.
That's the bravery though of it, because otherwise we collapse, we run away, we tuck our heads in, or we go do drugs or alcohol, whatever our thing is, we escape instead of standing in the feelings and being, emotionally intelligent when those feelings come up to go.
And it's
like
bravery.
This
Right,
is
bravery.
scary, and I'm going to confront it anyway.
And who said, I think it was John Wayne, who said bravery is being scared to death, but saddling up anyway.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about here. I think that was John Wayne that said that. I hope
you just have to do it.
I misquoted somebody if not, but yeah, you definitely like, it's all the same stuff here. You know, it's this, you are that person really, you know, if we're talking to men, I mean, you naturally have that in you, you know, but we've taken
all humans. Yeah.
Yeah, we have, but we've taken the survival kind of out of our lives and we have these good lives, you know, and we're kind of going, what you guys are talking about is kind of going back and deconstructing and remediating these basics and how to apply them to relationships.
Yeah. And a big part of it, I think, in Melissa, when we kicked this conversation off, I think this kind of winds it together, is initiation. I think what you're talking about, Chap, is the fact that everything we're talking about here today is really just different philosophies that head you to the same thing. All religions, you can basically break almost all religions down to the same philosophy, you know, becoming holy, becoming whole, becoming integrated. And when you talked about, you know, one of the main things that you look for in a man is that he's doing his inner work and he's spiritually has direction. Spiritually, he has spirituality that is important for him. And that is spirituality. Having spirituality is essentially having philosophy that he understands is going to be something that he stays on target with. It's a guide. It's a structure for him to keep himself accountable to.
And he might not even know he is a spiritual person. You know, I've got friends of mine that are hunters. I've got friends of mine that are fishing, experts and things like that, and or just they like sailing. But all those things are all actually spiritual.
Totally.
And if you really embrace them and you like them and you love them and you get good at them and you geek out on all that stuff, you are following a compass.
Yeah.
And it just happens to be yours. And if it's working and somebody like Melissa sees that, you don't have to go, you know, to do meditation. You don't have to go to yoga. You don't have to do that. You know, as long as you have something that is guiding you and it is moral and wonderful for you, that's what we're talking about.
I agree. And that you're paying attention to that. So don't just arbitrarily, thoughtlessly get on your boat, be on your boat, and then call it a day. Get on the boat and take a minute.
Do it with intention.
And count your blessings. Look around you. All of this is bigger than me.
Make it a prayer.
I'm so grateful that I can afford this boat and look at the sky.
Or the wind is in my sails. And
just don't let that pass you by when it could be
sacred,
a higher power moment or something sacred.
Yeah, I think that, and it's so, you know, we're in this culture we live in, and we're hoping we're changing it right now as we speak about it in these different ways, and we all have different ways of articulating it. It's so beautiful and it's so powerful, but we're allergic to the word spiritual, sacred, you know, in our culture. Yeah. And it's unfortunate when, Chap, we're going to talk about modern mysticism in a little bit, but on a different episode, but that idea of slowing down, understanding who you are, self-mastery, this is spirituality, like understanding your own psyche, understanding, you know, just mindfulness, gaining knowledge. All these things are how you're acting in alignment with your spirit, right? And if you need to use a different word for that to make yourself comfortable with it, fine. Please tell me what it is so I can communicate better with people who are allergic to these words. But making any moment sacred is possible if you slow down enough to figure out how to do it with intention. You can literally take a shower and make it sacred. Like if that's the place that you want to be in prayer, in meditation, in that mode of mindfulness, hey, maybe that looks like, you know, you take off your clothes, I don't know, maybe you fold them, maybe that's part of the meditation, you set them aside, you light a candle. I don't know if that's too woo-woo for somebody, but, you know, you put on some music that's really zen. You put some, incense drops of eucalyptus or something in your shower so that you're just
sounds so nice.
I know, like, let's do that.
Where's the shower
That's
at?
totally a higher power moment.
You're a producer, or she's our producer. I demand a shower with these elements on the next, and maybe we'll have Mercedes in the shower.
Yeah,
we can watch her.
That's quite.
Just maybe her eyebrows up, and it might not actually be her, but that's okay. It's a stand-in.
I don't know what visual we just gave to the audience, but
a weird one.
Moving on, but finding a way to make that part of your practice. And I wonder, Melissa, if you have certain practices in your life that are like your church, you know, your sense of prayer.
Tons. Gratitude is one that sounds so like eye roll, but It's something you can call on throughout the day. So instead of feeling burdened by developing your spirituality by like, well, I need an hour to go to church, or I need an hour to go to yoga class, or truly you could practice and I do this at a stoplight. Like, instead of being frustrated that there's traffic, that's a gift for you to go inward just for a minute and be like, thank God I have a car and I can afford to put gas in this tank, and that my eyes work and I can see, and just like a quick, that's available to everybody all the time. So that's something I do.
And the next song that you might hear, had you not been delayed in traffic, might be the best song you ever heard.
Totally. I love music. And that's a spiritual compass and access point, like music. A lot of times I'll ask, I have an Alexa device at home, so I'll ask Alexa, play meditation music. She does the work for me.
Yeah.
I'm just laying there, but I'm listening to music. That doesn't cost me anything.
Yes.
And speaking of doing the work for us and gratitude, that's you, Melissa. We are grateful to have you as our producer, and you have done the work. And you continue to do the work. And I'm very happy to have the opportunity to work with you.
Thanks.
You have been quite incredible in putting this all together. And I hope that it also translates through to our audience so that they allow us to continue doing this and we get to see you more on that couch, because I think you have a lot to offer this world besides this amazing production.
Set.
Yeah, this whole setup, but it's also beautiful to know someone who is doing the work, as always, only always, and is willing to gift it through articulation, which you're very, very good at. And I might be into that by now. So thank you so much for giving us all you have given us today. I think just knowing more about emotional intelligence and knowing that beautiful women like yourself are out there looking for that, like actively looking for someone who is doing the work themselves, but also sifting through these philosophies and figuring out what holds true for them, and then using that to be a light in this world.
Take what you like and leave the rest.
Yes,
as
absolutely.
you're learning. Yeah.
And we can find Melissa I love this, on all social media at Melissa Loves This. It's a good one.
Thank you.
Creative.
And thank you guys for being here with us. If you want to be part of our community, subscribe, comment, connect through the links below. If you want to share this with one of your buddies who might need to hear it, please do so. We will catch you again next week. Bye for now.